Last time, Elena threatened a crime lord with a kitchen knife and somehow married him. Now everything they built is about to collapse. The knife went through the table so hard it vibrated. Elena Park stood in her restaurant kitchen at 2 in the morning, staring at the man who'd just walked through her locked door like he owned the place. Dante Choi, the Frost King himself. But this wasn't the Dante she'd married 6 months ago. This Dante had blood on his knuckles and murder in his eyes. They took Min-jun, he said quietly. Too quietly. They took him from his school. He's 7 years old, Elena. 7. But what my husband didn't know was that saving this child would cost him everything, including 7 years of his own life. Eleanor's hands went cold. Min-jun was the son of Dante's former lieutenant, a little boy who loved her dumplings and called her auntie. After his father died in the coup attempt, Dante had quietly paid for everything. School, housing, his grandmother's medical bills. Nobody knew. That was the point. The Widows Collective, Elena whispered. Dante's jaw tightened. They left a photo. Him holding today's newspaper. And a message. He pulled out his phone, hands shaking. Eleanor had never seen his hands shake. The message was written in a child's handwriting, obviously forced. The Frost King melted. Now everyone he loves will burn. Eleanor pulled the knife from her table. Then we get him back. You don't understand, Dante said, and his voice cracked. They're not asking for money, they're asking for blood. They want me to execute the 3 men who testified against the old guard. Publicly. On camera. They want me to become the monster again, Elena. And if I don't, they'll... He couldn't finish. Elena moved around the table and gripped his face with both hands. Look at me. Look at me, Dante. We're not doing this. We're not giving them what they want. Then Min-jun dies. No. Elena's voice was steel. We're smarter than them. We've always been smarter than them. But even as she said it, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She opened it and her stomach dropped. A video. 10 seconds. Min-jun in a dark room crying, calling for his grandmother. Then the screen went black. Before we continue, can I ask you a question? Where in the world are you watching from? Comment below because we'd love to know how far these stories travel. Welcome to Afro Soul Stories TV, besties. This is our 13th video. Kindly show your encouragement by hitting the like and subscribe button. It would mean a lot to me. Thank you to those who already subscribed before now. You inspired me to keep creating more videos like this. This story gets darker than you can imagine, and you're going to want to see how it ends. Trust me. Now let's get back to the story. Dante grabbed her phone and watched the video 3 times. Each time, his expression got colder. Elena recognized that look. She'd seen it once before, the night he'd almost killed a man who'd threatened her. She'd talked him down then. She wasn't sure she could do it again. I need to make a call, Dante said. To who? People I promised I'd never call again. Eleanor stepped in front of him. The second you make that call, everything we've built dies. You know that. And if I don't, Min-jun dies. You want me to choose? The words hung between them like poison. Eleanor felt something crack in her chest. I want you to be the man I married, the man who said he was done with that life. Dante's laugh was bitter. That man's a fantasy, Elena. I tried. God knows I tried. But they won't let me be anything else. And you know what the worst part is? I'm good at being the monster. I'm really, really good at it. He moved past her toward the door. Eleanor's next words stopped him cold. Your grandmother would be ashamed of you. Dante froze. Slowly he turned. His grandmother had raised him after his parents died. She'd died holding his hand, begging him to be better than the violence that had taken everyone else. He'd promised her. That promise was why he'd tried to change at all. Don't, he whispered. She died asking you to be more than this. And the second you pick up that phone, you prove she died for nothing. Dante's hand moved so fast Elena barely saw it. He punched the wall next to her head and the drywall cracked. They stood there, breathing hard, inches apart. For a moment, Elena genuinely didn't know if he would hit her or kiss her. He did neither. He just pressed his forehead against the wall and broke. "I don't know how to save him without becoming that," Dante gasped. "I don't know how, Elena. Tell me how." Elena wrapped her arms around him from behind. "We do it together, like we do everything else. But first, we need information." She pulled out her own phone and dialed. It rang twice. "Detective Yoon, it's Elena Park. I need a favor." Dante's head snapped up. "What are you doing?" Elena held up a finger. "Yes, it's about the Widows Collective. No, I can't come to the station, because they have a child, and if we involve official channels, they'll kill him." She paused. "I need 48 hours. I need you to look the other way for 48 hours. The detective's response was terse. Eleanor closed her eyes. "I understand. Thank you for nothing, then." She hung up. "That went well," Dante said dryly. Actually, it did. Eleanor showed him the screen. During the call, the detective had texted her an address. He can't help officially, but he just did. The address led them to an abandoned textile factory in the industrial district at 4 in the morning. Dante wanted to go alone. Eleanor refused. They compromised by bringing 2 of Dante's reformed crew members, Marcus and Jiwoo, who waited in the car with instructions to call the police if they weren't out in 30 minutes. The factory smelled like rust and rot. Their footsteps echoed on concrete. Eleanor kept her hand in her jacket pocket wrapped around the kitchen knife she'd brought. Dante moved like smoke, silent and purposeful. This was his element, she realized. This was where he belonged, in the dark places where normal rules didn't apply. She hated how natural it looked on him. A voice called out from the shadows. "Far enough." A woman stepped into the dim light filtering through broken windows. Mid-40s, scarred face, eyes like flint. She wore a police badge on her belt, but Eleanor somehow knew it was fake. "Min Seo-jun," Dante said. "I was wondering when you'd show yourself." "You cost me everything," Seo-jun said simply. "My husband, my daughter, my career. That warehouse fire 8 years ago, the one you set to eliminate the Park Syndicate, my family was in the building next door. The fire spread." Elena's blood went cold. Dante had never mentioned a warehouse fire. Never mentioned civilian casualties. Dante's voice was hollow. "I remember. Your daughter was 6. 5, Seo-jun corrected. She was 5. And she burned alive while I was on duty, protecting a city that protected monsters like you. If you're not subscribed yet, do it now. Because what happens next will change everything." Elena's hand tightened on her knife. "Where's Min-jun?" "Safe. For now." Seo-jun's smile was razor-thin. "You think I'd actually hurt a child? I'm not him." She jerked her chin at Dante. "But I needed leverage. I needed him to come here, to face what he did." "So this is revenge," Dante said flatly. "This is justice." Seo-jun pulled out a gun, not pointed at them, just held. "You tried to wash the blood off your hands, Dante, married a nice girl, started playing philanthropist. But you can't reform a man built on corpses, so I'm giving you a choice. A real one." She slid a folder across the floor. Dante picked it up, opened it. His face went white. Eleanor grabbed it from him. Inside were documents, names, dates, photographs, evidence of every crime Dante had ever committed. Murders, trafficking, extortion. Things he'd never told her about. Things that made her stomach turn. "That's my insurance," Seo-jun said. "If anything happens to me, it goes to every news outlet and law enforcement agency in the country. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison. Everyone you've protected will go down with you." "So what do you want?" Elena demanded. "I want him to suffer the way I suffered." Seo-jun's voice shook. "I want him to lose everything he loves and know it's his fault. I want him to live with that weight every single day until it crushes him." Dante closed the folder carefully. "Min-jun? I'll let him go. He'll be home by morning." Seo-jun's expression hardened. "But you're going to turn yourself in. Full confession. Every crime, every body, every life you destroyed." "And Elena?" She looked at her with something like pity. You're going to walk away from him. Because if you don't, if you stand by him through this, I'll make sure everyone knows you helped him. Harbored a fugitive, obstruction of justice. You'll lose everything too. The silence was suffocating. Elena laughed, actually laughed. It echoed through the factory like breaking glass. You think I didn't know? Elena said. You think I married him blind? I knew what he was. I knew what he'd done. And I chose him anyway. Seo-jun's gun hand wavered. Then you're as guilty as he is. Maybe. Elena pulled out her knife, let it catch the light. Or maybe I'm just not as self-righteous as you. You want justice? Fine. Take him to court. Prove it. But you're not going to threaten me into abandoning him. That's not justice. That's just you trying to make someone else as miserable as you are. Elena, Dante said quietly, stop. No. She didn't take her eyes off Seo-jun. You want to know the difference between me and you? I don't pretend my pain gives me the right to destroy people. I don't use a dead child as an excuse to become what I hate. Seo-jun's face twisted. How dare you? Your daughter would be ashamed of you, Elena said. Using her memory to justify kidnapping a 7-year-old. What would she think of that? What would she think of you right now? The gun came up, pointed directly at Elena's chest. Dante moved without thinking, putting himself between them. You want to shoot someone, shoot me. She's not part of this. She made herself part of this the second she defended you, Seo-jun snarled, but her hand was shaking badly now. You're not a killer, Elena said softly. You're a mother who lost everything. I get it. I really do. But killing us won't bring her back. It'll just add 2 more bodies to the pile. Is that what she would have wanted? For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Seo-jun lowered the gun. Tears streamed down her face. I just want it to stop hurting, she whispered. I want one day where I don't see her face. Just one day. Elena stepped around Dante slowly. She walked right up to Seo-jun and did something insane. She hugged her. Seo-jun collapsed into it, sobbing. The gun clattered to the floor. And Elena just held her, this woman who wanted to destroy them, and let her break. I know, Elena murmured. I know it hurts. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what happened to your daughter. Dante stood there watching his wife comfort the woman who'd kidnapped a child to get to him. He looked at the folder in his hands, at the gun on the ground, at the 2 women holding each other in the ruins of a building his violence had probably helped destroy. And he made a decision. I'll do it, he said. Both women looked at him. I'll confess. Everything. Turn myself in. Dante's voice was steady now. But not because you're forcing me. Because it's the right thing to do. Because Min-jun deserves to grow up in a world where people face consequences for their actions. And because... He looked at Elena. Because the woman I love taught me that running from the past doesn't work. You have to turn around and face it. Comment below if you think he's making the right choice. Because this gets so much more complicated. Seo-jun wiped her face. You're serious. I'll give you 48 hours to get Min-jun home safely, to make sure he's okay, that he gets counseling, whatever he needs. Then I'll walk into the police station myself. Dante held up the folder. Keep your insurance. You'll need it to corroborate my testimony. But I'm doing this my way. Public confession. Press conference. I'm going to name names, burn down what's left of the old networks, and make sure they can't rebuild after I'm gone. Dante, Elena started. No. He turned to her, and his eyes were clear for the first time in hours. I told you once I didn't know how to save Min-jun without becoming a monster. You showed me. This is how. I can't undo what I did. Can't bring back Seo-jun's daughter or any of the others, but I can make sure it stops with me. Elena felt something hot behind her eyes. How long will you be gone? 10 years, maybe. With testimony cooperation, good behavior, maybe 7. 7 years. Elena did the math. She'd be 35. He'd be 42. That's a long time, she said. Yeah, Dante smiled sadly. Too long to ask you to wait. Good thing you're not asking. Elena's voice was fierce. I'm choosing. Just like I chose you the first time. You think 7 years scares me? Try me. Would you wait 7 years for someone you love? Be honest in the comments. Seo Jun was staring at them like they'd lost their minds. You're really going to wait for him? After everything he's done? You loved your husband, right? Elena asked. Even though he was a cop, even though the job was dangerous, even though you knew it might take him from you. You loved him anyway. Seo Jun's jaw tightened, but she nodded. That's what this is, Elena said simply. Love isn't just for the easy parts. It's for this too. The consequences, the waiting, the hard rebuild. They left the factory as the sun came up. Seo Jun kept the gun but gave them her word she'd release Min Jun within the hour. Elena wanted to believe her. Dante seemed to. In the car, Marcus looked between them. So, what happened? We're going to make some calls, Dante said. Set up a press conference for tomorrow. And Marcus, I'm going to need you to take over operations, all legitimate operations, the community centre, the scholarship fund, everything we built. Elena will help coordinate, but you're the face now. Marcus's eyes widened. Boss? Not your boss anymore. Dante clasped his shoulder. You're your own man. Time to prove it. They spent the next 20 hours in preparation. Dante contacted a lawyer, wrote out his full confession, and made a list of everyone in the organization who needed to be protected or prosecuted. Elena watched him work, memorizing the way his hands moved, the way he chewed his lip when he was thinking. 7 years of memories to sustain her through what came next. At midnight, Eleanor's phone rang. Seo Jun. Min Jun is home. His grandmother confirmed. He's shaken, but physically fine. Elena closed her eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank your husband. He's giving me more than I ever thought I'd get. A pause. For what it's worth. I believe he's changed. Doesn't erase what he did. But I believe he's trying. The line went dead. The press conference was held at City Hall at noon the next day. Every major news outlet was there. Eleanor stood in the back, trying to breathe. Dante walked to the podium in a simple black suit, looking like he was heading to a funeral. Maybe he was. The funeral of the Frost King. My name is Dante Choi, he began. For the past 15 years, I've been involved in organized crime in this city. I've hurt people, I've killed people, I've destroyed families and communities for profit and power. Today, I'm here to confess everything. The room erupted. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Dante spoke over them, his voice carrying. I'm providing full testimony and evidence against every remaining criminal organization I have knowledge of. I'm naming names, sharing locations, doing everything in my power to dismantle what I helped build. He paused. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I'm asking for accountability, for justice, for the chance to spend the rest of my life trying to repair even a fraction of the damage I've caused. His eyes found Eleanor in the crowd. To the people I've hurt, I'm sorry. To the families I've destroyed, I'm sorry. To this city, I'm sorry. And to the woman who loved me enough to show me there was another way. His voice cracked. Thank you. For everything. Make sure you're subscribed, because the ending will absolutely wreck you. They arrested him on stage. Eleanor watched them put him in handcuffs, watched them lead him away. She didn't cry. Not then. She'd promised herself she'd be strong for this part. The trial took 4 months. Eleanor attended every single day sitting in the same spot in the gallery. Dante testified for 3 weeks straight, detailing crimes that made the courtroom gasp. He implicated politicians, business leaders, other crime figures. By the time he was done, 27 people had been arrested. The prosecution asked for 15 years. The defense argued for 8 given his cooperation. The judge settled on 10, with possibility of parole after 7. When they read the sentence, Dante looked back at Elena. She mouthed, 7 years. I'll be here. He mouthed back, I love you. Then they took him away. The next 7 years were the hardest of Elena's life. She threw herself into work, expanding Phoenix Kitchen into a full community center. They offered job training, addiction support, and resources for families affected by crime. Elena hired Minjun's grandmother as a counselor. The boy recovered slowly with therapy and time. He still loved her dumplings. She visited Dante every week without fail. They talked through glass, sharing their days. He told her about his classes, his therapy, the changes he was making inside himself. She told him about the community center, about the lives they were changing, about the garden she'd planted at their home, growing vegetables for the restaurant. I'm keeping your side of the bed warm, she'd joke. 7 years is a long time to sleep alone, he'd reply. Good thing I'm patient. Year 3 was the hardest. Dante's appeal for early parole was denied. Eleanor had a cancer scare that turned out to be benign, but she didn't tell him until after because she didn't want him to worry. They had a massive fight about it through the prison phone system. Other visitors stared as Elena shouted that she was trying to protect him, and Dante shouted back that they were supposed to be partners. They didn't speak for 2 weeks, longest 2 weeks of Elena's life. When they finally reconciled, Dante pressed his hand against the glass. No more secrets. We do this together, even when we're apart. Elena pressed her hand to his. Together. Year 5, Phoenix Kitchen won a Community Service Award. Eleanor brought the plaque to show Dante. He cried. Actually cried. Right there in the visiting room. You did this, he said. You took my blood money and turned it into something beautiful. We did this, she corrected. Your name's on the scholarship fund. Your story brings people in. They want to see that change is possible. Is it? Dante asked quietly. Possible, I mean. Elena smiled. You're sitting in prison instead of running an empire. I'd say it's very possible. Year 6. Seo-jun showed up at Phoenix Kitchen. Eleanor almost didn't recognize her. She looked lighter somehow. Less haunted. I wanted to say thank you, Seo-jun said. Dante's testimony led to arrests that closed my daughter's case. Some of the people responsible are finally facing charges. Eleanor offered her tea. They sat in the restaurant where this had all started. I was wrong about you, Seo-jun admitted. I thought you were just some naive girl who didn't understand what she'd married. But you knew. You knew everything and chose love anyway. That's not naive. That's brave. Or stupid, Elena said. Maybe both. Seo-jun smiled. But it worked. He really did change. He's trying to, Elena corrected. Change is a process, not a destination. Seo-jun left her contact information. If you ever need anything, I mean it. It was the forgiveness neither of them knew they needed. Year 7 arrived like a held breath finally released. Dante's parole hearing was scheduled for March 15th. Elena wore the dress she'd worn to their wedding, red silk with gold embroidery. She sat in the hearing room with Marcus, Ji-woo, Min-jun's grandmother, and a dozen people whose lives had been changed by the community center. The parole board asked Dante what he'd learned. That power without accountability is just violence dressed up, he said. That change requires sacrifice. That love is stronger than fear, but only if you're brave enough to let it be. He looked at Elena. And that waiting for the right person is never a waste of time. They granted parole. Elena met him at the prison gates on a Thursday morning in April. 7 years and 19 days since she'd last touched him. He walked out wearing civilian clothes, carrying a single box of belongings. He looked older, grey at his temples, lines around his eyes. But those eyes were clear, peaceful. Eleanor didn't run to him. She walked, slow and steady, like she had all the time in the world. When she reached him, she said, "Your bed's still warm." Dante dropped his box and kissed her like a drowning man finding air. They went home, not to the apartment he'd had before, but to a small house Elena had bought 3 years ago. She'd furnished it slowly, carefully, with things that felt like them. Dante walked through it like a museum, touching everything. "You planted my grandmother's recipe in the garden," he said, looking out the kitchen window at the herb beds. "She taught you to cook. I thought she should be here." Eleanor wrapped her arms around him from behind. "Welcome home." That night, they lay in bed, just holding each other, relearning the shape of their bodies, the rhythm of their breathing. "I missed you," Dante whispered. "Every single day." "I know, I missed you too." Was it worth it, the waiting? Eleanor propped herself up on one elbow, looking at him in the moonlight streaming through their window. "Ask me again in 50 years. Dante smiled. "Deal." If you've watched this far, hit that like button and comment what you think happens next, because their story isn't over. 6 months later, Phoenix Kitchen expanded again. They opened a second location, this one specifically for job training. Ex-convicts, people rebuilding their lives, anyone who needed a second chance. Dante ran it, teaching cooking classes and sharing his story. He was honest about his past, about what he'd done and what he'd learned. Some people couldn't get past it, couldn't separate the reformed man from the criminal he'd been. That was fair. Dante didn't ask for forgiveness from everyone, just the chance to do better. Minjun, now 14, worked at the restaurant on weekends. He wanted to be a chef. Elena taught him her grandmother's recipes, the circle of healing growing wider. One evening as they were closing up, a young woman came in. Early 20s, nervous energy. "Are you Dante Choi?" she asked. Dante stiffened. This was always the moment he dreaded. The confrontation, the accusation, the past catching up. "I am," he said carefully. The woman's eyes filled with tears. "You testified against the trafficking ring that my sister was in. Because of you, they found her. She's alive. She's home. I needed to tell you thank you." She left before Dante could respond, pressing a photo into his hand. A young girl, maybe 16, smiling at the camera, alive because of words he'd spoken in a courtroom. Dante stared at the photo for a long time. Elena watched him from across the kitchen. "You okay?" she asked. "I don't know," he admitted. "I spent so long being the monster. It's strange being... not that." "You're just Dante now," Eleanor said. "Not the Frost King, not the reformed criminal, just a man trying to do better. That's enough. Is it? For me, it is. For the people you're helping, it is. For that girl in the photo, it is." Eleanor took his hand. "The question is it enough for you?" Dante looked around the kitchen, at the gleaming counters where he taught people to cook, at the photos on the wall of community events and success stories, at his wife who'd waited 7 years for him to come home. "Yeah," he said finally, "it's enough." They locked up together, walking home through streets that no longer felt like a battlefield, just a city, their city, imperfect and complicated and trying to heal, just like them. At home, Elena found an envelope on the porch. No return address. She opened it carefully. Inside was a single card with 3 words. She'd be proud. It was Seo Jun's handwriting. Elena showed it to Dante. He read it twice, then pressed it to his chest. "Do you think she would be?" he asked. "My grandmother?" "I think she'd say you're doing the work, and that's all anyone can ask." That night, they made dinner together in their small kitchen. Dante chopped vegetables while Elena prepared the marinade, their movements synchronized from years of practice. They talked about their day, about the new hire at the restaurant, about Minjun's college applications, normal things, boring things, beautiful things. After dinner, they sat on their small porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Dante had his arm around Elena. She had her head on his shoulder. 7 years, he said softly. "Worth every day," she replied. "I was thinking," Dante hesitated, "maybe it's time to start thinking about the future." Really thinking about it, Elena lifted her head. What kind of future? The kind with more than just us. Maybe a small person who likes dumplings and asks too many questions. Elena's breath caught. You want a kid? I want a family, with you, if you want that too. Elena thought about the life they'd built from ashes and blood and 7 years of visiting rooms, thought about the community centre, the people they'd helped, the slow, hard work of redemption. Thought about bringing a child into this imperfect world they were still trying to fix. Yeah, she said, I want that too. They kissed as the sun set, two broken people who'd learned to be whole together, who'd learned that love wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up day after day, doing the work, making the choice to be better. The Frost King was dead, Dante Choi was alive, and Eleanor Park, who'd once threatened a crime lord with a kitchen knife, had helped build something neither of them could have imagined. Not an ending, just a beginning, the kind that takes a lifetime to fully understand. Before we wrap up, drop a comment about what you think their kid will be like. And hit subscribe because there are more stories like this coming. 3 years later, Phoenix Kitchen's main dining room was packed. It was a special night, the 10th anniversary celebration. The walls were covered in photos documenting a decade of transformation. Eleanor moved through the crowd, greeting people, checking on dishes. She was 8 months pregnant, moving carefully, one hand on her lower back. Dante found her by the kitchen door. You're supposed to be sitting down. I'll sit when I'm dead. But she let him guide her to a chair anyway. From here, she could see everything. The restaurant that had started as her grandmother's dream, the community that had formed around it, the lives that had changed. Min-jun was graduating college next month. He'd got an early acceptance to culinary school. Seo-jun had started a victims' advocacy non-profit, helping families navigate the justice system. Marcus ran 3 community centres now, each one offering second chances. And Dante. Her husband stood at the microphone preparing to speak. He still got nervous before public speaking. Eleanor found it endearing. 10 years ago, Dante began, this restaurant was a small family business run by a woman who refused to be intimidated by a crime lord. She threatened me with a kitchen knife, and I fell in love with her courage. Laughter rippled through the crowd. What I didn't know then was that her courage would change everything, not just for me, but for everyone in this room. He talked about the journey, the mistakes, the consequences, the long, hard work of change. He didn't sugarcoat it, didn't pretend it had been easy. Someone asked me recently if I regret my past, Dante said, and I do. I regret the pain I caused, the lives I destroyed, but I don't regret where that past led me, because it led me here, to this community, to this work, to her. He gestured to Eleanor. And to the family we're about to start. The crowd erupted in applause. Eleanor wiped her eyes, hormones making her more emotional than usual. After the speeches, after the dinner, after most of the guests had left, Eleanor and Dante stood in the empty restaurant. Their restaurant, the place where everything had started. Think she'd be proud? Eleanor asked, touching the photo of her grandmother on the wall. Both of them? I think they're both proud, Dante said. I think they're probably up there somewhere, having tea and laughing about how hard we made this. Eleanor laughed. Your grandmother and mine? That's a terrifying thought. Nah, I bet they get along great. 2 tough women who raised stubborn kids. He put his hand on Elena's belly, feeling their daughter kick. Think this one will be as stubborn as us? God, I hope so, Eleanor said. Stubborn is how you survive. They locked up together like they did every night. As they walked home under the streetlights, Eleanor thought about the story they'd tell their daughter someday, about the grandmother who taught her mother to cook, about the father who chose change over power, about the mother who chose love over fear, about how the best things in life are worth fighting for, worth waiting for, worth rebuilding for. Their daughter was born 3 weeks later on a Tuesday morning. They named her Grace. for the grace they'd received, the grace they'd learned to give, the grace that made second chances possible. In the hospital room, Dante held his daughter for the first time, tears streaming down his face. Elena watched him, this man who'd once been the most feared person in the city, now terrified of dropping a 7-pound baby. "You're doing great," she assured him. "She's so small," he whispered. "So perfect. How do we keep her that way?" "We don't," Elena said honestly. "We just love her, teach her, show her that people make mistakes, but they can also make amends. That's the best we can do." Dante looked at his wife, at his daughter, at the life they'd built from ruins. "That's more than I ever thought I'd have." "Get used to it," Elena said, "because this is just the beginning." And it was. The beginning of late nights and early mornings, of first words and first steps, of teaching Grace to cook in the same kitchen where Eleanor had once threatened her father with a knife, of watching her grow up in a community that believed in second chances because they'd witnessed one firsthand. The beginning of a life that proved the most powerful transformations happen not in dramatic moments, but in the quiet, daily choice to be better than you were yesterday. The Frost King's story ended with handcuffs and a prison sentence. Dante Choi's story ended with a daughter's laugh and a wife's love, and a community built on hope. But really, it wasn't an ending at all. It was just another beginning, the kind that takes a lifetime, the kind that matters. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and comment your biggest takeaway. Because stories like this remind us that no one is beyond redemption, that love can be stronger than fear, and that the bravest thing you can do is face your past and build something better. Thanks for watching. See you in the next story, besties.